have my first interview is very important, and it comes down to a wish list. A modern day warrior who rose to an occasion, wasn't planning to do it, and so with no unbridled, my delight at having him is just completely full. Coming from the Second Amendment Foundation, saf.org, we're joined today by Stephen Willeford. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. It's great to be on today.
You, with rampage killers, the whole thing, the whole dynamic that they try to present is that you have to disrupt the pattern of the rampage killer. And in Sutherland Springs, you had a very serious situation unfold in front of you. To the degree, what were you doing prior to gunshots being heard?
I was actually, I stayed at home that day because I was going to start my on-call on Monday morning. And and I knew I was going to work anywhere from 20 to 30 extra hours that week. And it could happen at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever. So I stayed home from church that day to relax. And I was actually relaxing in my bed, checking my phone messages and my email and such. So I was in green state of mind, as a
condition white, they would call that, right? Condition white.
Oh, there you go, condition white.
So then, was it your daughter that heard gunshots first?
Actually, it was, yes. My older daughter was engaged to be married, and so she had moved in with us. That way, she could move in with us and didn't have to sign another apartment agreement and then be stuck with it when she got married to her husband. She could move in with her husband afterwards.
Right.
And so she was doing dishes at my house. If you're staying at my house, you're staying rent free, you're not staying chores free.
Right. Okay. So in relation to where your house was when you heard the shot, you were not exactly you weren't in a condition of readiness to go out and get involved in disrupting a rampage killer, were you?
Actually, I had been burglarized, and the burglar had stolen my only gun that was out of my safe back then. And my biggest fear at that point was coming home and seeing my own gun, being confronted with my own gun. So I kind of made a habit of coming home and unloading guns, putting them in the safe. So I had all my guns in the safe at that moment. And my daughter told me there was a gun, that there were gunshots. I ran to my safe, I opened it up, and I grabbed an AR-15. I built that AR-15 myself for competition, shooting bowling pins and swing targets and moving. And so I built it the way I want it to. And if you have a choice of a rifle or a pistol in a fight, always choose a rifle.
Well, that's the real gun, right? That's the real gun. Handguns are just sort of a measure to get to the real gun, right?
Well, and that's what police officers will tell you. Their pistol will get them to their rifle.
Right.
In a real fight, if you have a choice, and if I was going to have to load something anyway, I grabbed my rifle. And I grabbed a box of ammunition, just grabbed a handful of ammunition. I should have had it loaded, ready to go. I did not. That's my bad. And that won't happen again. And I called my wife and asked her where she was. And she said she was at my other daughter's house. She was taping and floating the walls at my other daughter's house. We were building a house from the ground up.
Right.
And I said, stay where you're at. She said, what's going on? She could hear the panic in my voice. I said, there's a mass shooter shooting up the church. And she said, don't go over there. And I hung up on her. And
no choice.
Yeah.
Is that what in your head you had no choice?
My other daughter had run out the door, jumped in her little car and ran up the block to find out what was going on. And she saw him shooting through the doors and walking through the doors into the church. She turned around real quickly, came home and said, Dad, there's a guy in black tactical gear shooting up the church. And I said, did you call 911? She said, I did. They're aware of it. right away, what that told me is police are coming, and they're coming as fast and hard as they can.
Right.
But, I live in a little community of 600 total people.
What's the response time? What do you think the response time would have been if you had waited on the police to show up?
Well, we have a recording from the Valero across the street from the church. And from that moment when the lady in the Valero called 911, it took 19 minutes before the first sirens were heard.
Yeah.
So I knew my community couldn't wait for the police, and I thought, well, there may be an officer close, but you don't know, and you can't wait. And I decided, as I was running across the street, if I see a police cruiser, I was going to throw the rifle and hit the ground with my hands spread out and start yelling, "He's still in there. He's still in there. Go get him."
That sounds like a really good strategy. That's
yeah,
a really good one. Yeah.
You have to. And I truly believe that the Holy Spirit was over me, because my clarity of thought was crazy. I sent my daughter back in the house. She followed me out when I ran out. And I knew she couldn't follow me over there. So I sent her back in the house. I told her, load me another magazine. I may need it. I knew she couldn't load another magazine. She couldn't find another magazine and load it and come running out. Here, Dad, I got a loaded magazine.
Right.
I sent her back in the house to do busy work, to get her out of my way. I knew she would be, that she couldn't do it and get across the street in time to be of any help. It would be over by then. But I didn't want her running over there to give him another target that I cared so much about. He already had too many that I cared about. And so she ran back in the house, and I ran across the street. As I was halfway across the street, I yelled out. And I teach tactics and self-defense and stuff, and you never yell out. You never give away your element of surprise in something like this. But I did, and the only thing I can say is I believe the Holy Spirit called out a demon that was within him, because in the church, he had just shot Chris Workman in the back, and he shot Chris's mother through the breast, and he was walking over to finish him off, and he had done that with almost everybody else. He would shoot them and then walk over and then make sure they were dead.
Yes, just to put some context into this. This guy went in with 700 rounds of ammo ready to go.
Well, they say that he fired up to 700 rounds in. He started around the church, shooting through the church. The little church is 100-year-old church,
right?
And just thin wood walls and very little insulation. He started shooting from the outside through the church at about shoulder height if you were sitting in a pew. And he walked all the way around the church, and then he came through the doors, shooting through the doors, and then he started going row to row and shooting people. And then he was actually going to people that made sound and shooting them, crying babies and stuff, and he was choosing them. And so he had just shot Chris Workman in the back, paralyzing him from the waist down, and he shot Chris's mother through the breast and was walking over when I yelled out. And they heard me yell out in the church, and they said instantly he stopped and dropped his rifle and turned around and came out of the church with his pistol. Why would he have dropped his rifle and came out? But he came out and he put bullets in the truck in front of me. He put bullets in the car behind me and the house behind me, shooting at me. He had on Class 3 body armor, which, if your viewers don't know, Class 2 is what police carry, and it stops pistols. Class 3 is what the military carries, and it'll stop rifles.
Yes.
He had on Class 3 body armor, and I hit him in the left chest. I hit him in the abdomen. He started running for his vehicle that was in the middle of the street with the driver's side door open and the engine running. At that moment, he was trying to get away. He had been hit back, and he didn't like that. And as he turned to get into his door, I put one between the plates. It has a front plate and has a rear plate and it
Right.
Velcros across the side. I put
Right.
one through his side plate, and then I put one in his legs. He was able to get into the vehicle, shut the door, and put 2 more rounds through the side window. I put one where I perceived his head to be. And the coroner's report said he had a split across his forehead. He had on a ballistic style, SWAT style bulletproof helmet also. He accelerated, turned the corner, and was running away from me as fast as that little Ford SUV could run. And I put one through the back windshield at about 150 yards by the time I got out in the middle of the street. They say that bullet shattered the back window. It went through the driver's side seat and hit him just right of the left shoulder blade. And now I'm standing in the street and I'm watching him top the hill and leave. And I said, saying, it can't end this way. And I looked off to my left, and there was a pickup truck that had watched the whole thing at a stop sign. And I ran over and tapped the window and said, that guy just shot up the church and we have to stop him. Now picture that. The driver just saw a shootout.
Right.
And he's on 911 talking to 911. And one of the shooters comes running over, taps on his window and said, that guy shot up the Baptist church. We got to stop him. Any sane man in this world would have just accelerated and left me standing there at the stop sign. But this is Texas we're talking about. We're not known for our sanity.
Well, let me ask you a question now. You went out with 8 rounds. How many times did you hit him?
I hit him 6. I hit him 6 out of 6 rounds.
Did you have rounds left when this gentleman picked you up in his vehicle?
I had 2 rounds left.
2 rounds left, and you gave chase with 2 rounds.
I didn't know it until I got in the vehicle and we were running down the road. I didn't know how many I had fired. I didn't know how many I had put in the magazine.
Right.
But as we're running down the road, I dropped the magazine. I got around in the top of the magazine, one in the chamber. I tell Johnny, and I didn't know Johnny's name at the time. I said, tell them, hurry, hurry. I got 2 rounds left and he's still got on body armor. Someone
Right.
said, Willie, you gave chase with 2 rounds. I said, well, he really pissed me off. And the guy tells me, he says, remind me never to piss you off.
This is the thing, though, that I find extraordinary about this. Was this, okay, so you were a trained shooter. You trained in tactics. You trained with LEO. But this is not your profession?
No, I never was law enforcement. I trained with a law enforcement officer that was a former Army Ranger. We shot in competition.
Right.
We competed together, and he trained me what to do in body armor. Why would a plumber need that? We were just, I'm saying it was God's plan. It wasn't mine, but we were just training for our competitions and stuff. We competed on a 5-man pistol team.
Right.
We were a church group. We called ourselves the Sinners. All the teams had to have a name, and we were a church group. We just decided to call ourselves the Sinners because in the Bible, the term sinning is an archery term.
Right.
Meaning missing the target.
Right.
And so it just seemed natural. We're Christians. We all sin and fall short. So we were the sinners. And I trained with this at the time. He was a San Antonio police officer. He was a former Army Ranger. And we just trained like a lot of people go out and play golf on the weekends.
Right.
Colonel Grossman said that a golf course is a willful misuse of a perfectly good rifle range. And what Colonel Grossman,
let me get you hold up right here. We need to take a pause real quick. And you're presented by Second Amendment Foundation, SAF.org, Alan Gottlieb and Mark Walters and all those people there. One of the most, I consider them to be one of the most resolute organizations out there in gun rights. Special operations is what they specialize in. We'll be right back. I'm speaking with Stephen Willeford, and this is Lock and Load.